certainly there's been a lot of focus on the Education Secretary, who has told an audience of head teachers that she would have probably punched OFSTED inspectors who recently visited a school in her constituency. So she was speaking today at the Association of School and College Leaders. And let's just have a little listen to exactly what Gillian Keegan said.
I heard recently, actually, a fantastic school I went into, and they told me how the OFSTED, their OFSTED experience had gone, and I was shocked. I mean, I was actually shocked. I thought, God, if I'd have met these people, I'd have probably punched them. They were really rude, and
We're not filming this, are we, please?
But, you get people who come in and, you expect people to be rude to you when you're a politician. You kind of sign up for that. But, when you're kind of trying to run a school and educate children and change lives, you don't expect somebody to come in and not be respectful.
Well, the issue of pressure on OFSTED inspections has been thrown into the spotlight following the death of Caversham head teacher Ruth Perry, who took her own life after an OFSTED inspection downgraded her score to inadequate. Well, an inquest found that the inspection had contributed to the head teacher's death. Well, OFSTED News Chief Inspector, that's Sir Martyn Oliver, also spoke to the Association of School and College Leaders about the changes that have been made to inspections following the death of Ruth Perry.
Every lead inspector has now completed the training package with support from Mental Health First Aid England, and every inspector used will have completed it by the end of this month. We have published our full response to the coroner's inquest following Ruth's death. We accepted her findings and responded to every single recommendation. Ruth's death was a tragedy, and I am determined to do everything that I can to prevent such tragedies happening in the future. It should never happen again, and no one should ever feel as Ruth did.
Well, we have Ruth's sister Julia with us now. And Julia, I wonder, first of all, what's your reaction to Sir Martyn's start in the role as the new Chief Inspector?
I have met Sir Martyn myself and been in communication with him since the beginning of January. I remain cautiously optimistic that he does at least recognise the extent of the problems that he's facing to restore trust in the inspectorate. I am probably inevitably a little concerned about the pace of change. And hope that the big listen that's been announced today isn't just being used as a way to delay bringing in measures that really need to be brought in urgently to make school inspections safer and more effective.
Just for people who haven't heard about the big listen, so this essentially involves hearing the opinions of parents and professionals about OFSTED's work. And I'm just wondering if you feel that process is necessary now.
I think the OFSTED still has a lot to learn, and it's good that Sir Martyn wants to hear from the profession. Clearly, he's already heard quite a lot from the Education Select Committee. And again, the listeners might not all be aware of this, but there was already a parliamentary inquiry into Ofsted's inspection system, which was pretty damning and came up with some very strong recommendations, including getting rid of the single word judgments. And that is not something that's even included as a question in the big listen consultation that Sir Martyn launched today. So my own view is both the Department for Education and Ofsted already have some very sound and strong recommendations coming from Gillian Keegan's colleagues, amongst others. And I'm not entirely sure how a new listening exercise is going to coincide with that or add to that, or whether it might be in danger of distracting from that.
The other thing we heard just a moment ago was the Education Secretary, who said that she would have probably punched Ofsted inspectors who recently visited a school in her constituency. And if you were hearing that, there was an air of levity as they were chatting about this. I wonder how you feel hearing that.
I think it was quite an ill-judged comment. I presume it was a slightly off-the-cuff comment made, I gather it was in question and answer session rather than part of her speech to the conference. I do find it slightly distasteful playing for laughs in that way about a very serious issue that's still affecting head teachers across the country. But we'll forgive her a little bit of ill-judged off-the-cuffness. I was a bit surprised that she said she was shocked to hear about that behaviour. She spent 11 hours sitting next to me in various meetings that I've held with the Department for Education, where I have spelt out very clearly the terrible behaviour at Ruth's school during that inspection and during inspections at other schools from the many head teachers who contacted me and who still continue, even today, to contact me about brutal OFSTED inspections that they've had. So she shouldn't have been shocked to hear that. Clearly, I would not condone violence. That is not an appropriate response even to a rude and intimidating inspector. I would hope that Gillian Keegan will leave it now to Martyn Oliver, whose job it is to improve the behaviour and the standards and the conduct of his inspectors, and that she will focus instead on the areas of schools inspections that are her responsibility, namely things like the single word judgment or the consequences of a poor judgment. So academisation, likely loss of head teachers' jobs and so on. So if she could remedy those and leave Sir Martyn to deal with unpleasant inspectors, we would go a long way towards sorting out the many problems within OFSTED.
Just finally, Julia, it's been a really long journey as you try to get reform in this matter. And I'm wondering, how are you and your family so long now after the loss of your sister?
It doesn't feel very long to us in terms of our grief and our loss. It does seem like a very long time to be battling for reforms that seem self-evidently needed, and the outpouring of responses that I have received from across the teaching profession, as I said earlier, that I continue to receive every single day, even since Sir Martyn announced a more empathetic approach to inspections. There are still inspections going on up and down the country that put the welfare of head teachers and teachers at risk. So it feels like a very long time to keep pushing for reforms that are so obviously overdue and so obviously needed, and that will ensure that inspections are fit for purpose and that teachers and head teachers are better able to look after and to educate the children for whom they have responsibility.
Julia, thank you. Julia Waters there talking about what we've been hearing as head teachers gather today. We've been hearing several speeches at the Association of School and College Leaders. I wonder if you're involved in our education system. What do you make of what you've been hearing today? It'd be really good to have your insight into what's been going on in terms of the reform of how OFSTED inspections are happening. And of course, as well, we've been hearing from that comment from Education Secretary Gillian Keegan. How do you feel about the fact that she said she would probably have punched OFSTED inspectors who recently visited a school in her constituency? Do get your thoughts in.